or good evening, wherever you are in the world, all you fans of Lions of Liberty. Welcome to Beyond the Lines. We're the podcast for Lions of Liberty. We're dedicated to supporting our veterans and first responders, offering offshore and inshore trips and outdoor adventures to promote mental health and battle that nasty PTSD. In just a moment, I'm going to introduce some folks. We got a really fun show coming up. I'm Mike Stevens. We got Scott Bacon on the line with us, Captain Jean Hammond, and our very special guest today is Kathryn Gardner. She is from Find Your Tranquility. She's a mental health specialist, and we're going to just chop it up today and talk a little bit about those things that maybe most guys don't like talking about it, but tough luck. You're with the Lions of Liberty crew. This is what we're all about, so we're going to talk about it. Um, it's my pleasure to go around the room this morning. Obviously, Captain Jean, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. I'm very excited for this one because, I've had my own personal journey. 6 trips to the desert after 9/11. It took me 15 years to find the right person, and really, I went through a handful of counselors, and when you find the right one, you stick with it, and they're very, very good at just peeling back the layers of that onion, and that's what you need. And I'm excited to do this podcast tonight. It's gonna be great.
Outstanding. Mr. Bacon, how's your day going?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. A lot of stress in the life, so this is a good episode for me here with everything going on, hurricane and military, PTSD, everything's going on. So again, looking forward to the episode.
Fantastic. And all right, without further ado, this is our special guest. Honored to have her. Hello, Miss Catherine. How's it going?
Hello, very good, very good. I will share with you, most people will ask, well, as a therapist, do you ever have any stress? And I said, oh my goodness. The hope is that once you have some education and tools, you just bounce back. So we all face all kinds of daily impact from stress, and we're going to talk about some of the worst types of stress. But that the hope is that these tools and techniques that I use in my life, my husband uses in his life, we see that you can bounce back faster.
Fantastic. So tell us a little about what you have ongoing. I went through your website. I see Find Your Tranquility, which I think is a great name. Like it already gets you kind of in the mode when you start talking about tranquility. Can you kind of tell us your journey into mental health and how you ended up here today?
Yes, very good, very good. Yes, and I use the water symbol as my logo, so we are on the same page. That we're going to talk about nature therapy and blue therapy in a few minutes, and the impact of how we need to use our environment to heal. And so we'll talk about that. Yes, I am Kathryn Gardner. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor, and the reason that I have two different licenses is because I practiced in the state of Illinois from 2001 to 2022. And then my husband was a Chicago police officer for 27 years, and it was time for retirement. We were done, and he was at a point in his career at 27 years that we really felt like it was time to make the move that we had talked about all of our marriage, which was to come down to Tampa, Florida, and start things here with our little kids and let them get established in schools and make friends and start sports and do their clubs and activities at a young age. So I moved the counseling practice with me, and I've been very blessed to serve thousands of families over those 24 years. And watching and being a part of the intimate lives of people, hearing through individual therapy and family therapy, how difficult situations can change your whole future, and how a certain event can stay stuck with an individual, and how it can be very difficult to move forward to future goals when you are held down heavy from something that has happened to you. So I work with counseling clients. I have a Tampa practice that I see clients still in Illinois and Florida. And we talk about this. We utilize these tools. How do you find tranquility? How do you find your way internally within yourself? And no matter what externally is coming at you, that you're able to use techniques and strategies that empower you to feel like you are capable and strong and back to the person that you saw yourself before the traumatic events occurred.
Wow. That's a heck of a mission that you have going there. And I noticed that you're really focused on family counseling in your practice. Seems like you lean heavily into the ladies. I know there's a segment out there that need a little more special attention, much like our guy veterans that won't talk about PTSD. There's certain things that I'm sure other people like women won't talk about that they need the counseling for. You mentioned that your husband's a retired police officer, which obviously uniquely qualifies you to talk about what we focus on here. So Captain Gino introduced me to the therapeutic side of what we do, right? Like I always knew fishing was a thing for me. Like it gave me some peace. I liked being on the water. But he coined the phrase for me, saltwater therapy. And then when you do a deep dive onto, the human brain and how you process things and good mental health practices, it turns out that there is a clinical side to getting into nature, getting into the water. Would you mind terribly touching on that for a minute? Because that just fascinated me. That
Oh,
Gino found it without even knowing it.
Isn't that sometimes it works? And I need to tell everybody about it. It works. No, it's beautiful. So I'm a licensed therapist, but I also, in my boredom of the pandemic, went back to school and I became a certified health coach. And part of the naturalistic, holistic treatment, and I'm all about that. I feel like there's so many wonderful ways that adults, and you mentioned the women, I have seen a lot of female officers. I have seen a lot of veterans, female veterans, and then also the spouses of veterans deployed and the impact on the entire family system. And so one of the things that is, I think, ignored or overlooked, maybe I should say overlooked is that sometimes it's right in our backyard. Sometimes the ability to pay attention, which I'm trained in mindfulness, and the idea, the main concept of that kind of therapy that I think any individual can start doing today is, am I paying attention to what I think, what I feel, and what I need? Well, when we're in the noise or we're on our phone or we're still in the workplace or even in the house, there is too much congestion. The mind is too overstimulated to be able to sort out, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What do I need? But nature, in the rhythm of nature, it's been studied now that nature therapy can actually bring our heart rate back down. It can decrease our blood pressure. It can change our respiratory rates. And all of those internal signals tell the amygdala, that little center at the back of the brain that's telling me, should I be in fight or flight? Is there an alert? Is there an alarm that I should be responding to? It tells the amygdala, look, everything's in harmony. Everything's nice and calm. And nature provides that. So there's blue therapy, which is where we incorporate water. There are swimming activities, even sitting at the beach, right? I've posted that on my Instagram page. Like, the beach is my happy place. It really is. It is wonderful and beautiful, but it is incorporating all five senses of the beach. That feeling of
logo.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the logo.
Okay, so would you be willing to tell that to my Jen so that she can
Yes.
understand that I can go fishing every day? Is that something
Every
you'd be
day.
willing to do?
It's like a dosage, right?
Right.
How
It's
often
a
should I take it?
therapy. It's a therapy for me.
Hey, that's my excuse. It really is.
Oh my goodness,
Right?
If I
boys.
go,
No, we're not going here. We can't
I'm
justify your
telling you,
bad behavior with the wives.
if I don't force myself to just be near the water, on the water, after 2 to 3 weeks of not doing it, you can feel it. You can feel when it starts to, the anxiety level starts to increase. Your temperament might be a little more. I have to force myself to do it. I really do. And a lot of times we do help a lot of people, and I do take a lot of other people fishing on their boats, but I make a conscious effort to do it alone and by myself. That's when I get, not only, helping people is therapeutic, but just being by myself and being alone on the water and just you're not thinking about anything else. It's salt water is therapy. That's what I hashtag all the time. Water is therapy. It really is. It's life. It's calm. It's everything that I love. So,
It's so true. I mean, I see evidence of it, and especially after Gene pointed that out a few years ago. I got involved with him with this kind of stuff way back in, gosh, 2020 or maybe even before that. But once I was kind of cognitive of it, I can watch it in my friends, man. I mean, that's why we did this charity and why we work so hard to get this going is because, both of these guys, they're former military, right? They're gruff and tumble, but man, it's palpable. The release that they get, like I know for me it is, but I'm going to talk a little out of school on Scott for a second. When I go fishing with Scott, I can see the moment where he got to exhale finally, right? Like we'll get we'll get off the boat ramp or off the boat lift, and we'll get going back, and then he'll get in the first place and set up, and I literally can see his shoulders relax. I can see him exhale, and he's like, okay, now all I'm thinking about is fishing. My mind is clear. And I don't know if he knows it's that obvious, but man, I can just see it wash off your body when we're out there together. It's crazy.
No, you don't know it's that obvious. I do, but you are right. I mean, that is exactly it. Is we get to that spot, and uh, for lack of better terms, I go numb. I don't have to deal with the day-to-day stuff. I'm free. I'm just feeling feeling the wind. I'm seeing the water. I'm obviously trying to catch fish, but that's not even the piece. That's not even the serenity that I feel. That's not even. It's just being out there and being away and feeling everything slip away. So no, I did not know it was that obvious, but you are right. It definitely shows.
Yeah,
yeah, Catherine,
yeah, as I
how
say,
important?
constricted muscles. Yeah,
Yeah.
that the
Yep.
parasympathetic versus the sympathetic nervous system. Like the
Wow.
nervous system, when I'm in alert, right, and I'm fight or flight, my sympathetic nervous system is completely activated. But he's describing it. When you go into parasympathetic nervous system, it shuts down. It says, "Hey, there's nothing coming at you. There's no tigers. Relax. We can go into rest and digest." Right? The parasympathetic system turns on. Wow. I mean, I love it. I love you can actually see it, and you have found a great mode to it. Sorry, what were you going to ask?
Yeah, how important is it on a scale of 1 to 10 for veterans and or people with higher anxiety levels to seek that solitude? How do you teach them how to do that, and how important is it not only for your mental health but biological health? When I'm at this level,
Mm.
there are times where I might get 2.5, 3 hours of sleep,
Right.
and
Physical
that's so
manifestation.
unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's so unhealthy. So you want to talk about that? How important is it to come back to a level that isn't that fight or flight mode?
Yes. And I think the empowerment, it's a 10. It's a 10. I'll say that all day long, how important it is. And it is important because it really does then have an impact in immune system, right? How many of our veterans are now comorbid with other medical things? They're getting ulcers, they're having a heart attack. The system can only be at that heightened level so long before it manifests itself in some other system of the body. So the importance of saying, I actually have techniques that can calm me. I have techniques that even if I don't believe it, right? Because I talk to veterans, I talk to my husband and first responders. No, I've got to stay alert. This is a dangerous world. There's anything that could happen, right? And the oversensitivity, the brain is overstimulated by certain sounds, and a dropped pan in the kitchen could even set off a bad day. So unfortunately, it is more important to keep that at a maintenance, to say, am I maintaining the level of how my brain is responding to stress, so that unfortunately a new trigger or a new stressor could appear in my life, where we were talking about the hurricane before we started. I mean, different events that we have no control over.
Hmm.
Well, there have been lots of researchers. David Kessler is one of them. He talks about, where were you the day before your event? Were you stable? Were you emotionally secure? Were your relationships intact? Were your finances intact? Was your faith a pace of your life? Because depending on where you were the day before is going to change the trajectory of what your healing process is. And so, because we cannot know what tomorrow holds, we do need to set ourselves in a place of not just healing from what's already occurred to us, but also putting ourselves in the strongest foundation and grounding that we can for what is about to happen next to us. So it's both. It's recovery and it's prevention.
So, from me, not changing the subject at all, because I'd like to continue to talk about this, but being that we are mostly veterans and not so much um, first responders, police officers, stuff. You have a dealing with police officers. We've talked to other individuals on this show that were police officers, and the understanding that they face all the same things we do, except they have trouble being able to discuss it, because people look badly upon that because they are that police officer. And I shouldn't say badly, but it's frowned upon to be like that. Could you for all of our police officers out there, could you give us a little bit of insight as to how they can deal maybe with some of this?
Yes. I think you're absolutely right. I think we need to make sure that we are always including those that are on the front lines here within our country. Day to day, now we're going to talk about complex trauma, which means it wasn't one single day's event. It's not May 12th, that happened, and we all know exactly what you went through on May 12th. Well, unfortunately, law enforcement, first responders, a firefighter fights 6 fires a week, right? They may have carried bodies out of a house multiple times in a month. My husband is a police officer, right? How many times did he come home covered in blood? And I asked him, is that yours or the offender's? Right. And it was so important that my husband became a peer support member on the police department, because talking to each other, psychological debriefing is exactly what you're doing on the boats. And it is exactly what police officers and vets and firemen, all of our first responders need to be doing on a very regular basis. I've even talked to nurses who have been through a very difficult case. It didn't go the way that they wanted. It didn't go smoothly, and it may even internally did not go smoothly, right? Sometimes in the police department, you're mad at your lieutenant. That's who called the decision over the radio, and you think lives were lost because of that call. So it's trauma on so many different layers. So the first piece becomes, how do departments offer debriefing? And if that's not accepted, if that goes straight to HR and now HR knows about your psychological well-being, then can we create more in our community for individuals to talk about it, to share what happened, to share what you liked and what you didn't like, to talk about maybe your guilt, talk about your regrets, and talk about what you learned from it, right? The most important part, when I used to work at the hospital and we did debriefing sessions, the most important part is, well, we can't change it, right? It's over. The situation has already occurred and unfolded. But can we support an environment that says you processed it, thoughts, feelings, and needs, right? All 3 parts. And you also were able to recognize, and what did I learn from this? Is there a different way I would communicate? Is there a different way that I would ask a question? Is there different people I would have gotten involved? When I came home from work, would I have stuffed it down and said, how was your day at work, honey? And she asks, and he says, fine, it was fine. Okay, well, maybe he needed it to be on the shelf for a period of time, but is there a point even in that relationship that can we talk about it over the weekend? Can we go for a long car drive? And I just want to sit next to you and hear you. I just want to hear what happened. So yeah, I think our first responders, I think there's absolutely a need for individuals to be able to feel like there's a safe and secure environment and people that get it and want to be there for support.
Yeah, we're in that. You would think we've evolved enough, right, Scott? That we still have this generation that's pretty stuck on mental health, right? And they view it a bit as a weakness, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially from men. We're I call it stuck on stupid because I didn't know. I was one of the ones stuck on stupid for a long time, right? Like it
So
took
was
me
I.
to admit that because we equate not being completely healthy mentally with weakness, and that's such a bad way to cope with that. And I think Scott's point that that's the stigma still sometimes, right, with law enforcement. And is there a safe way to do that? We literally interviewed a guy here from law enforcement who went through a whole career, and actually his story is incredible because he survived his own suicide, only to come out the other end and be able to talk about this and advocate for those debrief sessions that you're talking about. So yeah, I just so in lieu of that, right? So that's one thing that you would hope, if you're in law enforcement now, that your department or your county or state or whatever has that debrief program set up. But what can we do as individuals? I know Scott and Gene and I, we tend to check on each other a lot and check on our broader circle, and we're pretty good at picking up the signs, especially for military guys if they're struggling. But what can anybody who's listening here today that's what should they be sniffing out?
And and
Yes.
and I would like to add a little bit to that too. Is
Mhm.
is I would like to specifically say, add on to that is what can some spouses do? Since a lot of times they're the brunt of, I've done it, and it's not just spouses, partners, girlfriends, anything, but maybe also address that too, what they can do.
Yes. I think you're right. I think, yes, those that you work with are going to be able to talk the talk. They've been in your shoes. They recognize what your stress is like. They know who that lieutenant is and how that person behaves. Um, and I think so. Know your circle. And I think make sure that you are asking and sharing, right? Because the more that we self disclose and we lead by example, then that shows that this is a relationship. Hey, I'm okay talking about it. I'm okay opening up about it. And it shows that there is safety there. The signs that we're looking for, and this is for your buddy, or this is for if there are wives or significant others watching, that you're watching for two different patterns that we often see. It's the withdrawal pattern or the overly reactive pattern, right? That if you start to notice that there's these shifts in mood or negative view of self, negative view of world, the individual's tone just continues to be upset and critical and frustrated, and now everybody is being caught in that net. Right now, I'm complaining about the neighbor, and now I'm complaining about the way that they changed that stoplight on 54th Street and why they do that. Right. So if that has gone up in a tick, then you think, okay, I'm recognizing that in the person that I care about. What's that about? So they're overreacting to certain things, or you find that they're withdrawing, didn't show up, didn't call back, didn't answer, more withdrawn, kept to themselves, quiet, flat affect, we call it. Then you're recognizing, okay, is this part of their PTSD that they've gone internal to process, right? John Gray said it in his book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Men will need to go into their cave, sort it all out, and then they come back out. Well, I think you're right. I think that's the stigma of mental health. Well, don't you just come back out and you're done and you're good and you fixed it in your head? Nothing else here. And it's just not biologically what's happening, right? You were talking about like, I need to go someplace, I need to be active. And in my activity level, then I'm able to get that dopamine, get that serotonin. All right, here come those happy hormones. Now I'm actually biologically able to do something about it. And I have found that talking about the biology side of it has just helped so many men and women to just feel validated. Oh, so this isn't a mental health issue that, well, if I was just tougher, then I wouldn't have these issues. No, we go back to your ACEs score, your adverse childhood experiences score. I mean, what was your childhood like? What kind of toolbox were you even given in life? So when these kinds of things happen, they may have set you off in a different path. That then gives them the challenge. All right, do I know myself? So that significant other, that spouse, that buddy is like, hey, I don't think you're yourself. Do you feel like you're doing well? Right now, ask them that. Reflect that question back to them. That injured person might say, yeah, fine, I'm good. Just keep repeating it. 2 days ago, I noticed that you seemed off again. And today I'm noticing the same thing. Do you notice it? Do you notice anything off? Do you notice anything different? It helps them to hold that mirror, right? It helps them to look without getting defensive that you're pointing out, look at my weakness, look at my flaw. It's, hey, do you think everything's okay? Because I think we can do something about it. And then the last piece of this then is that if I can give some tools and strategies to those loved ones, again, friends, family, coworkers, significant others, that, okay, so when they lean in and they go, yeah, I'm not in a good place. Okay, what do I do with that? Now you just handed that to me and I'm not sure what to do with that. So that's what I would start with.
Yeah, it's getting them to I guess admit it. Like I said, it took me 15 years, and maybe what I would like you to reflect on is it more difficult for you to get men to open up about things, because growing up, you're not allowed to cry. You're not supposed to cry. You're supposed to be tough. You're not supposed to get beat by the girl. We are inculcated with a certain aspect of what it is to be a man that doesn't fit this criteria. Do you find it more difficult for harder to break that box open with men than women?
It is. We are wired differently, right? Women, when we want to have a conversation, we want to look at each other. I want to sit across the restaurant from my best friend. I want her to tell me how she's doing. I want to look into her eyes. I want to see her facial expression. And then she's going to be more intimate about how deeply she's going to share something going on in her life. Men are shoulder to shoulder. So their desire, this is why the baseball game, all of a sudden we're sharing. We didn't even know that we were sharing, right? That shoulder to shoulder ability that men don't need to see one another to get into that level of openness. But you're absolutely right. There are old school messages from generations past that said, don't feel, there are even cultures still, don't feel it, don't cry, don't let it out, you're being a wimp. There's all kinds of other inappropriate words they will say if you're talking about your feelings. The challenge is that, but we are all wired with feelings. So what are we going to do about those? Can we recognize those and then still stay in the place where you're providing and protecting, right? Men are wired to provide and protect. Can I still do that in that place of vulnerability that says, I understand that these are my feelings and here are some of my problem solving techniques. So yes, I have been told not to blubber and cry like a girl. Okay. Well, nobody's asking you to unravel. And I think men, even when they come into my counseling sessions, I don't know what we're going to talk about here. Like, I don't want to just spill everything out. I don't want to, look messy in here. Nope. That's not what we're asking you to do here. We're asking you to say, can you share what you see going on? And when you can tell me what you see going on in your life, then I'm going to help you look at it and flip it around and go, well, what if we look at it from this angle? And what if we talk about it from this side? Have you ever thought about it this? Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. So it is 100%. Men are going to struggle much more to get into that place of, does this make me look weak? And the challenge is reframing that to yourself. It's not about weakness. Actually, some of the strongest men have great emotional intelligence, right? We have an IQ and we have an EQ. When you have EQ, when you have great emotional quotient and ability to know oneself, know how to express yourself, know when to let it out, know when not to let it out, that is actually amazing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think the hardest thing that I see like a couple struggle with, right, with those significant others is responding in love, right? You said, listen, if you see that your partner's out of sorts, right? How do you relay that message? One, without you being emotional because of there's likely you've had to say something because you haven't been treated like you're used to, right? So, and then it's a calculated gamble. Do I say something to him or her in a way that won't get me blasted back, right? There's a risk reward there. Like, hey, bud, are you sure you're like you said a couple of days ago you weren't reacting like this and now you are. There's such a fear there for the other person, right? To be able to say that with confidence, and I think and maybe you can talk about this. That dialogue has to happen before an incident arises, right? Hey, what can we do together as a team or as a couple that if I see these behaviors cropping up in you, is there a safe statement to say? Is there a safe approach for me to come at you? And quite frankly, we'll just take this from the wife to the husband angle because we're all a bunch of guys talking to you today, right? And quite frankly, that's on me. It's on Scott. It's on Gene to start that conversation, in my opinion. Like, hey, I know I get like this. I know I do this. And this is what I think you could say when you think I'm slipping in that direction. And then hopefully, if you hear your words back, you're less likely to give that volatile response. And that's been kind of some of the tools that I've been introduced to.
Yeah.
Sounds
I
good
love it.
in theory, Mike.
That's exactly right. I was going to
Oh,
say
I
the
know.
same thing.
Yeah, how do you break down that defensiveness?
Yeah.
Because nobody likes criticism.
You're
Nobody
right.
likes to feel, especially men, right? We don't want to feel weak and
No.
vulnerable, whatever. Leave me alone. How do you
Yeah.
how do you get past that defensive wall? You
Yeah.
know?
So my rule of thumb for couples is always timing, right? So first thing I teach them is the HALT acronym. So HALT. If you're hungry, you're angry, it's late and you're tired, now is not the time to discuss. It's just not going to pan out well. So if you're hungry, angry, it's late and you're tired, table it, right? And you can have that piece, hey, we just need to talk about this tomorrow. Okay? The second thing, again, I don't want anybody abused. I don't want anybody to be in this circumstance where they are just the punching bag for somebody, their partner who's in pain. So I always say, like, you also have every right to say, not now, we're not talking about this now, or I'm walking away, or I'll be back in an hour. We can't flee and not tell our husband, well, where are you going? Well, what are you doing? That'll make him more aggravated, right? So it's, I just need to walk away. I'll be back in an hour, because time can help to de-escalate that. But yeah, you hit on that defensiveness. So I call the defensiveness triangle.
Yeah.
And boy, this can happen for men and women, right? If I'm hot about something and I am just angry and there are flames coming out of my ears, that I'm not approachable. Do not try to have this like, I've got some ideas. Here's some suggestions.
That's an A. Angry.
Don't do it.
Got it.
Don't do it. So as you see your partner, as you see the veteran in your life or the individual suffering with PTSD, is they're climbing up, right? And they're just physically aroused, like slamming stuff and stomping up the stairs, and words are coming out of their mouth. Let them get to that peak and they will always come back down. But too many times the wife tries to interject as he's in the climb, never works out. He's going to just turn that heat on her. And unfortunately, then it's, well, what did I say? And they sit in my office. Well, I don't understand why he said those things to me. I said, it was just timing. It was just timing. He was in a place positioned with adrenaline. We talk all about how much adrenaline is a part of PTSD and panic disorder, that panic attacks are very real part of this. And so when that adrenaline has filled every tissue of the body with adrenaline thinking, fight the tiger, he's not in any frontal lobe place of, oh, thank you, honey, for those ideas. No, he's not there yet. So It really is about recognizing, okay, where's the person at? And then if they're in that de-escalation piece, now they're approachable. Now it's can I put my arm around you, right? Touch. There was a wonderful book written about how to raise our teen boys, and it starts with a hand to the shoulder. Hey, let me talk to you. You've got his
Yeah.
attention now. His nerve endings have been activated. Okay, mom's trying to say something to me and it's important and she cares. And that touch started that signal off to my brain to quiet down that adrenaline. I don't need it in this moment. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, let's look at that from the other angle now, being maybe the veteran or husband with certain levels of high anxiety and PTSD. How do you not let that continue to escalate, even though you may not show it? How do you get away from the top blowing off of that, as the other part of that?
Yes.
And I'll tell you right now, I'm guilty of it. You will not see it. I will not get
Mm-hmm.
angry until it's way too late and I've exploded.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so guilty of it. So
There was a anger management class that was offered for incarcerated men, and they did research on this exact phenomenon that these men came in and said it was too late before I could come into logic and tell you, oh, there's another alternative. Don't punch the guy's face in, do something else instead. So it really, and we've sort of said this a few times here, it's know thyself. I mean, part of what a therapist, a men's group, your fishing expeditions, these are the opportunities to learn, when am I at a 2, when am I at a 4, when am I at a 6, I'm starting to get close to that 8, because the biological way that the brain climbs is not as instantaneous as it appears. It has been building. And for all of the clients that I've worked with in counseling over these years, boy, they will turn back around, and maybe it takes a few months to learn yourself and learn, oh, as soon as my hands start to sweat, I'm already at a 3. As soon as I start to get the heat on the back of my neck, I'm at a 5, right? As soon as I snapped at somebody with the first verbal response, oh, okay, I'm already at a 6 or 7. So you are getting closer to that 10, and that 10 is going to be a rage place where then you're blind. You're not going to be able to make any decisions. So it takes a lot of work, personal work, but it's very doable. It is manageable. It just takes time with yourself.
yeah, for me, it's always been like, before I had PTSD counseling, it's always been, oh, he looks like a 2, but inside, I might be 3, 4, 5. Like there was no steps between a noticeable difference between 2 and 10. It
It's
seemed
such a
like I
guy
just
thing, man. That's such a guy
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah. But one thing that I have learned through counseling is your significant other may not like it, but sometimes I just gotta just walk away without saying anything. Just leave the situation because it's not going to be good if it continues. Not.
It's not. And I think, just like you were saying earlier, I think if she has been educated on this too, and she's understanding, okay, this is going to be part of what he's doing that is the healthiest option right now. So he is not abandoning me. She cannot hear the message in her head. Oh, he doesn't care. Oh, look here, he's giving up on us. It's not about us. That's not what just happened in that moment. She has to be able to stand in her place of confidence in the relationship that says he's doing something because he's in a painful place. We will come back to that once he's figured out the I, right? You have to figure out yourself before you can even be in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can't even get to belongingness until you figured out the I. Yeah.
See, that brings us to a very, very good point, is that a lot of this counseling that we go through has to be gone through together. And so both sides learn, both sides have to learn. The first, like I'll tell you, in my experience, the first couple of times my wife went to PTSD therapy, I left the room. I like the first 2 counseling sessions, that I brought her along. I couldn't even sit in the room. But it's so important that both of you go through it together, I think. Have to.
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Talk about resources for a minute. We have your website. We're going to link you here. Again, I love the service that you provide. You're in the Tampa Bay area. We're out of Pasco County, so it's all relative. But that's one of the things that we try to build here at Lines of Liberty is a network of helps, right? So if we're on a trip with somebody, we can give them that phone number or that website. For folks that encounter this maybe out of nowhere, right? They hear the talk, or they feel like a buddy's headed down that road. What's the best way for someone to insert or to intervene? Obviously hitting it head on, we all know, is a terrible idea, but what resources should they be looking for?
Yes, I think that's it. Is the first step is awareness. So if you are able to understand the checklist of what are the things that happen during a flashback, what happens, why are nightmares a part of this, understanding the arousal and reactivity, the fear of, I saw myself, and I say this so often during PTSD sessions with clients, the event itself was very upsetting, but actually recognizing how it broke a part of me, it's also a trauma, right? Trauma means frightening, that I didn't think I could break like that. I didn't think that something could do that to me. And so it is being able to be aware of what the symptom checklist is for PTSD. It is then, once you are aware of it, okay, am I a person who wants to read about something and become more informed? Do I want to listen to podcasts and other people who have been in my shoes, who validate me, who reinforce this? I'm not just making this up. I'm not just being overly dramatic about how upset something is, because I know, and you guys can speak to this, some veterans will compare to each other. Oh, well, I didn't have this, and this happened, so I couldn't possibly have PTSD.
All the time. All the time.
Yeah, right. Sometimes it's not even the event that happened, like it's part of your service connection that caused the PTSD, or it's secondary to a mission or something. It's not even the thing.
That's it.
Let's. I want to help the wives and the husbands out of people for a second. Like, and maybe you can help me understand it, because I'm a little. I've dealt with alcoholism before, right? And one of the things that's encouraged is, like Gene is saying, to have the spouse go through the therapy too, because you learn about codependency, right? And the effects that a spouse's alcoholism has on you, even though you're not drinking, you don't have the problem, right? But you really learn a lot about yourself. Can you talk about the importance of what Gene's saying? Listen, but getting the spouse involved in there, and what is that equivalence? Like I said, codependence is what we call it in alcoholism. What is that? How does that translate to something like this with mental health is in general for a couple?
Yes, yes. Well, it is. So I think it goes right in line with the resources that the community has. I mean, I think you're right. Some individuals will go to an AA meeting, and the significant other may go to the Al-Anon meeting, all part of a 12-step program, recognizing what has become unmanageable and what I can no longer take care of for myself. In going through those steps, it is not just the individual who is struggling. And the reason that we encourage family support is because they're going to come back home. They're going to be in your environment. They're going to come across a stress in the house. And if you're not aware of what they're saying, or the language that they're using, the vocabulary, the psychobabble, as my husband calls it, that we use, then you're going to miss out on how you could be adding and helping that individual in their recovery, versus creating a new stress. Well, why are you talking like that? Well, that doesn't even make sense, right? The spouse that's uninformed, hasn't been through a supportive track with their PTSD partner, then they may actually create more triggers, not knowing it.
Yeah.
Wow.
because right, because
Oh,
they
yeah.
did not get information. And then what I love when my husband and I have gone to groups is that, oh my gosh, there were things that he was doing I never even put under the umbrella of PTSD. I didn't recognize those were connected. So it's important
Wow.
for wives and significant others, adult children living in the home, parents, other people, brothers and sisters that want to support the loved one with PTSD to say, oh, okay, wow, that is actually something you can't control right now. You are struggling with that. And I don't want to be an additional trigger to it. That's why, so what my husband and I go to the PTSD Foundation of America. They are all around the United States. They're based out of Houston, Texas, but Tampa has their own chapter, and Central Florida has their own chapter. And the group meets, the veterans and first responders meet, and the wives and significant others meet. And we have separate meetings, and we all talk about different topics, and we share together, well, how has that happened? What did you do? How did you respond? How did you manage Christmas? How did you manage the drinking? How did you manage the outbursts in front of the family and extended family and the judgment coming in? How did you explain this to the kids when, he did this on Christmas morning and it's supposed to be this special time? But specialized times mean that those chemicals of the brain and body are heightened. So there's actually more likelihood that the birthday party falls apart because it was a heightened stimuli activity. So we can inform and go to those types of organizations, ptsdusa.org.com. I wrote it down. So that .org, so that you can participate on a daily and weekly basis with others that get it, and that you can stay informed and feeling like you have a place to ask questions. Hey, my spouse did this week. Is this what are some techniques that I can use to do that? And then lastly becomes counseling. PTSD Foundation of America has the HOPE program for suicidal veterans and first responders. They're brought over to a wonderful facility in Houston where they are given beautiful grounds and activities to stay there and move through what happened and where they reached that bottom. But it's giving them the opportunity to say, okay, even if you went for seeing a licensed therapist, the very first session, we're there to ask questions. What happened? Tell me what's going on and what happened to you. Psychologytoday.com has the biggest directory of therapists, licensed therapists that exists. You can see our bio picture. You can see and read what we've written about ourselves. It also on psychologytoday.com indicates, is our training in PTSD? Is our training in alcoholism? Is it in anger management? Is it in couples work, right? What are all the facets that you feel like, no, it's not just this one thing I need to work on. It's showing up in the workplace, or it's showing up in my unemployment record. Those things are checkboxed through a filter on psychologytoday.com as well. So those are some other resources that can be very helpful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you
Well, we're
work with
getting-
community care through the VA to offer services to?
Do you know, I did in Illinois. Now being a new therapist in Florida, it's about getting reestablished again.
Okay.
Everybody, they have their own little like cliques. I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, gentlemen, we are getting close to the end of our time, and we've been really blessed to have Kathryn with us tonight. Let's go around the table here and get maybe some closing thoughts or questions before we wrap it up, guys. You want to go first,
Yeah. Just, if you need, the first step is admitting that you need help yourself. You gotta recognize it. And like I said, it took me 15 years to just find the right person. Don't give up on finding the right person. I went in, I went into a lot of sessions where I said, okay, here's the deal. I grind through therapists. Like I, I, I literally gave her a warning. She's like, okay, have a seat. And you just got to keep going until you find the right. I had a therapist that wanted to get political on me, and I was out the door the next day. But don't give up. Just keep looking, and there's people out there like Miss Kathryn that'll help you out quite a bit. quite a bit. Thank you so much.
Gotta be.
So yeah, with that, obviously I struggled a long time with reaching out to anybody and wanting to get help. It's it's something that, it like Gene and like you had said before, it's something difficult for us as a male or somebody who head of a household or anything like that to get help. It's even sometimes even harder to go to a therapist. So at the end of the day, reach out to somebody. If it's, a therapist would be the best, obviously, but reach out to talk to somebody and then work your way up to try to move to that better support group. But even at the end of the day, we're here, Lines of Liberties here. Give us a call. Call one of us, send us an email. We can get you in touch with anybody out there, the VA, anything like that. So please don't struggle. Please don't sit there and think you're alone. There's lots of us that are gone through this, and just don't hold it in. Reach out. Reach out to one of us. Reach out to anybody. Just get some help.
Fantastic. Good stuff.
All right. And I usually end the shows with the check on each other, right? Call a buddy, tell someone you love them, give the guy a hug the next time you see him. Guys hate that stuff, but it makes an impact. So make sure in your journey you do that. Call somebody you haven't checked on in a while. Make sure we're okay. Kathryn, I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. We're gonna make sure we link all your stuff in the down below here in YouTube, and I'll give you the final thoughts here before we close it out.
Thank you so much for having me. I think the most brave thing that I have seen out of men and women is the ability to say, I could be better than I am today. And that's it. Is that if you feel any part of you that says, you know what, I think I can be better, just one step better than I am right now, then that's all it begins with. And if you can find the right counselor, just like they're saying, give that counselor. My rule is 3 sessions. Try them out for 3 sessions, right? Maybe the first session, it's all interview. It's all, what's your background? How long have you been married? That kind of stuff. If it's a deal breaker on the first session, walk away. Yeah. Don't come back to them. But otherwise, give them 3. Give them 3 sessions and you will see, are they a fit? Are they the person that's going to help you to move to being the best version of yourself? Thank you again for having me.
And thank you. And then let's pay the bills real quick, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel. Please click on like and watch the video start to finish, because it helps the algorithm, right? Leave a review. Give us some suggestions for things that you want to hear on this podcast. This is out here for you, nothing more but for you. Follow us on the rest of social media. Again, everything that you do will help support the cause and help us reach out to more veterans and first responders.
I'm going to
Gino,
caveat that, Mike, if you would like help to help support this organization, to help us get more veterans and first responders on the water, it takes money. It takes money to do so. You can donate if you like, right on the website, linesofliberty.org. It's not free, so we need help. We need help.
Every dime helps, folks. 10 people give us $5. That's a couple of trips, right? Especially if we're doing inshore.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, please don't think any amount is too little, guys. Thanks again for listening to Beyond the Lines. Together, we're making a difference, right? For those who've given so much. And we'll see you next time. Take us out, Scotty.
All right. Thank you.